to make sure I don't forget. You guys ready to get started?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
I think we can go ahead.
So, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Stacy Gatlin. I am a proud AK board member and today's moderator for today's session. Same, but different. Understanding the Black adoptee experience and the need for community. I'm going to try to make sure I pin you and Kevin so people can hear you guys. Hold on. Spotlight and spotlight. Spotlight. Perfect. So you all talking. We'll get started. But again, welcome. I think you're going to offer time for question and answer towards the end. But in the meantime, in the chat, let us know where you're from, what state you're visiting from. Well, you're attending from, which state you're attending from. And I'm going to toss it off to Kathy and Kevin. Welcome.
Okay, hello. My name is Katherin Garland. And just before we get started, Kevin and I are a little bit more interactive. So you can wait till the end if you have questions, or you can ask as we go along. That's up to you. Because if anything is unclear, we want to make sure that we're clarifying things. So welcome again to Same but Different, Understanding the Black Adoptee Experience and the Need for Community. Thank you for being here in this presentation. So for our overall goals, we're hoping that you will be able to identify and discuss biases centered on Black adoptees specifically. Um, we know that the term person of color or BIPOC is out there, but today we are focusing on Black adoptees, and that's for a specific reason. Participants will broaden their understanding of same-race Black adoption. And so again, we understand that Black adoptees can be adopted by, there are different scenarios, but Kevin and my experience is based on same race Black adoptee. And also, you will be introduced to communities and affinity groups specifically designed to support Black adoptees' experiences. So just a little bit about me. I'm a same-race adoptee who was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. I am a writer and an essayist and a memoirist, award-winning blogger and essayist. Currently, the way that I pay for my very expensive eggs is I'm an associate professor of education. Um, I'm also the co-founder of Black Adoptees Meetup, which if you have not heard of that, you should go to the website and check it out, blackadopteesmeetup.org. I've also done a couple of presentations about adoption, two of them, including this one for Adoption Knowledge Affiliates, and another one where I interviewed Tarsha Smith with Autumn. I don't know if you've heard of Autumn. I think her last name is Sansom, something like that. But she does Fog Lift, and she did Fog Lift Chicago, and I interviewed Tarsha there. Also have, and I should have updated this, I also have several publications about adoption, three of them with AKA, one most recently published on Monday. And also my memoir, In Search of a Salve, Memoir of a Sex Addict, was, even though it's not considered an adoption memoir per se, what I do in that memoir is weave my adoption story into my overall narrative to show how adoptees can also develop what's called a behavioral addiction. Tarsha couldn't be with us today, but just a little bit about her, and I do suggest that you look her up. If you're on social media, she's the Adoption Journey podcast everywhere. And so she is the host of that podcast. She's also the co-founder of Black Adoptees Meetup. She's same-race adoptee, born in Chicago, raised in Orlando. She also has a couple of presentations with AKA and a host of other things that she has done, which are listed here, and which she continues to do.
Hello, my name is Kevin. I guess this is my way of jumping in. I'm also a same-race adoptee. I was born in Jersey City, New Jersey, raised in East Orange, New Jersey. Um, I had a podcast. Every now and then I do it. Let's Talk About Adoption podcast. I had a couple of interviews. I'm also a retired Army non-commissioned officer. There's some of my little things that I've done. The big thing on that was the drill sergeant. I like yelling at people sometimes, so that was pretty cool. I got 2 books out, actually 3, but 2 reference to my adoption and foster care experiences. And the 3rd book is about some of the stuff that happened in the military. Wow.
Good. Okay, so before we get started, we wanted you to participate in a poll, and I think someone's going to launch that for us.
Sorry, just point of am I allowed to be here if I'm not Black? Or do I?
You are. No, that's a good question because there are.
Yeah, that's what I want.
No. You don't have to be Black to be here.
Okay, because I just wanted to make sure I'm not like, you know what I mean? I don't
Honor
wanna,
the space.
yeah, I want to, thank you. That's exactly what I want to do. I would love
Yeah,
to stay
no.
because I would love to listen and thank you. I just wanted to check in case I wasn't.
No, thank you, Marcy. And that's a really good question because I have been in adoption spaces where they are very clear that if you're not BIPOC, then you need to skedaddle. But that's not what we're doing here. We want everybody to be here. And so if you could go ahead and answer each one of these, and I think we'll be able to see as you do it, right? Usually it's how that goes.
Yes, people are answering right now.
Oh, okay, you can see it. I can't see it though, but that's fine. Eventually we will all see it.
If you stop sharing, you may be able to see
If
it.
I stop sharing?
Try, I don't know.
Okay, let me see.
Yeah, I lost my questionnaire. Is there a way to shoot it back to me?
Yeah, let me try it.
No, and I still can't see it. I think once you're done, once you close it, then maybe you can share it when everybody's done answering.
That's a QR code to the poll. Hopefully that works for folks. And what I can do, Catherine, if I can share my screen, if you want to see the screen as it's coming along. Do you want to see the poll results now? I can share my screen now.
Just if we're done, then sure.
We have about 6 folks that voted. Hold on. About 6 out of 11 folks, or 6 out of 8. That's most folks. Hold on.
Okay. Yeah, because we're not gonna participate. Well, I guess I could.
Hold on. No, it's not letting me do it. Hold on.
Do you need me to end the poll?
Maybe I'm gonna also try to vote and see if I can.
I don't know if you can vote, but
I'll vote it.
give it a second. Okay. We'll give it a second, Marcy, and then I think when I end it, it should pop on everyone's screen then.
I think when you end it, you're going to have the option to share the results.
Okay, perfect. Anybody else? Going once, going twice? Okay. Ended.
Okay. Let's see what everybody thought.
Do you see it now?
I see it, and I hope everybody else sees it. Okay. And some of these are skewed because I just did fake answers for mine. Okay, cool. So we can see what everybody thought. And I'm just gonna, if you can leave that up for a second, just so that I can have it for later. And then we'll get started. Okay. Okay, so thank you for participating in that. We are not going to talk about the answers just yet. First, we want to actually, share a little bit about who we are as adoptees who identify as Black, so that you can understand the diversity in our own stories. So my relinquishment story begins on the south side of Chicago with my birth mother, who was mentally ill. She was diagnosed as schizophrenic, um, undifferentiated type, which is what they called it back then in 1973. She kind of went back and forth, and this is all in my DCFS report that I was able to obtain. So she kind of went back and forth between abortion and adoption because abortion was new. Um, and she thought that she was going to be able to do that, but she actually wasn't. And she ended up giving birth to me. And then, because of her psychosis, is what I'm guessing, because I can only like read between the lines and fill in the narrative. She ended up leaving me in an apartment building for about 5 days, and I was 5 months old. The janitor of the apartment building found me and then took me to the police, or called the police, which is where I was placed in foster care for about 5 months. So in between that time, my birth aunt, whose name is also Katherin, and this wasn't my birth name, so that's why that's kind of odd. My birth aunt my mother's sister tried to get me from foster care and raise me. And the state basically told her, because she and her siblings had been in foster care at some point in their life, that she was not fit to take care of me because they didn't trust my birth family's background. And they told her to leave me alone. And so my adoption story begins with my two parents, who were Black, who adopted me around like 10 months old, I think is what it is. So like 1974. Unlike other people whose stories I've heard, mine is a little different, because you think about like popular culture stories where there's like some rich person who comes and saves you, and or gives you like this steady home. Well, my adoptive mother actually had kidney disease, so she was disabled. My adoptive father, was had a high school diploma, and we lived on the west side of Chicago, which by all accounts at that time was the hood. So I was adopted into, and I just told Kevin this the other day, like I was adopted in, most people are adopted out of the hood. I was adopted into the hood. Um, and so that was very interesting. I was their only child, and we were a part of what's called the working poor, and maybe just a little bit less because of my mother's disability and because my father didn't have like a white collar job. But what they did do for me is, my mother and that side of the family valued education. They recognized that I was a little smarter than most kids. And so I attended magnet schools, academic magnet schools in Chicago. Actually, at the time when I attended them, they were like the best in the nation. So the high school I went to was where Michelle Obama also went to. And so they recognized that, enrolled me in these schools. And I always say that for me, had I not been adopted, I'm pretty sure that that would not have been the case. So my mother was very good in that regard. Because of my mother's illness, she died when I was 16 years old. due to complications. And then my adoptive father gave up his parental rights the following year when I was 17 years old. So I have a lot of abandonment in my background that started early and then kind of continued. Overall, though, I would say that, well, I'll get to that. Well, maybe this part. So in my opinion, I know there are some people who think adoption is all terrible and some people think it's just the best thing ever. I'm kind of in the middle where I think that there are clearly reasons why you should adopt people. My case is one of them. I could not have been raised probably by a schizophrenic woman, or if I was, then my life would have been totally different, I'm sure. However, I think that adoption should maybe be treated the way foster care is, where you check in with the child sometimes, you check in with the adoptive parents to see what's going on. I think what ends up happening, or what used to happen, is you just kind of drop the kid off and sign some paperwork and everything is wonderful. And I just know for me, everything wasn't always wonderful. It would have been cool if my parents had some resources as well. My mother did not really tell me I was adopted. She strategically, I think, placed a book on the bookshelf because, like I said, education was really important. And I was an early reader. And so I ended up reading a book called Why Was I Adopted? Thinking it was just some information. And it was actually the story of me, which she then told me not to cry about or be worried about because it wasn't a big deal. So I think resources for parents would be really helpful. If that can be a thing. So before I toss this over to Kevin, any questions, comments?
There was a comment in the chat from Jessica that meant safe external care does not have to equal adoption. Guardianship and kinship care are great alternatives that don't strip the child of their rights, identity, and culture like adoption does.
Yeah, and I do thank you for, you said that was Jessica.
Mhm.
Just speak up a name. Okay, thank you, Jessica. I totally agree, and I think that's why I started off with this part about my birth aunt. So I think kinship would have been possible if my family was a healthier family. But like in my case, I really don't think that was a good option. And I can just give you a really quick aside. I have a birth sister from my mother, so my mother's child, and she didn't get adopted. She ended up staying with her father's, we have two different fathers. She stayed with her father's grandmother. And one of the things that she was most hurt about when I met her is that all of our aunts, we have 5 aunts, no one ever checked on her. And I tried to explain to her, because I found out about the mental history of the rest of my family. There's a lot of like having nervous breakdowns, depression. They just don't know how to deal. And so even though I totally agree that I know kinship adoption is sometimes better, but sometimes that's also not an option for people. Like, and I don't think it's an option for me. Okay, Kevin.
All right, it's back at me again. Okay, my story. Well, I was born in 1960, and my mother just basically handed me over the day that I was born, and she gave me over, and immediately, I'm not sure, still some fuzzy things in reference to, did I go straight to a foster care home or did I go to a friend's, something like that. But anyway, the people that watched me for maybe 2-3 months, they decided that they couldn't deal with a crying baby. And so they basically left me out on the steps. And a social worker just happened to come by and somebody was complaining. So they found a baby with some milk, some spoiled milk. And they was dying of malnutrition. So they took me to the hospital and fed me through my legs. I still got the scars that every now and then I talk about it. And they was able to save me. And then that's when I went to my second foster care home. And during that time, it was about 10 years. I went through some stuff with them. There was verbal abuse, all kinds of things was going on. So one of the main things was colorism. A lot of people don't know what that is, but believe it or not, I had the people who was watching me was actually Black, and but there was older couple, 65, but they had this thing where there was another kid in there that was very light skinned. So they used to use colorism to keep me in check. I couldn't go outside. I couldn't do a whole lot of things. He was able to do a lot of things during the holidays, which was very, very really traumatized. They used to, do things like give me 3 or 4 gifts on a chair, and they have a whole sofa of toys and stuff for him. Same thing with Halloween. They would dress me in something like a devil or something like that, and he would be Superman, Batman, or whatever. But anyway, so it was that, and there was a lot of abuse, a lot of psychological abuse. Moving on to my adoption story, I had from that one home, I was going to another home, and there was some physical abuse and some sexual abuse in that. Then finally, I was able to get adopted at the age of 16. A lot of things happened with that. From 1 to 16, I was known as this person from birth, Kevin Hodge. And then all of a sudden, now I'm in high school, Southland High School, and I have to explain to people why I changed my name. That's a whole different story right there. My adoption circumstances was basically, I was getting ready to be, what they say, you only could be 18 up to 18. I was getting ready to, graduate from foster care, quote unquote. So they wound up adopting me, and so they gave me the name Barnett. My opinion on adoption is mixed feelings like Kathy. My main thing is with adoption, you should not hide the identity, culture, or whatever from that kid. The kid name should not change if it's not given, if they already have a name. In my case, when I go get my birth certificate, even up until the age of 65, I get a birth certificate with my adopted parents on, and it shows that basically my adopted mother had me when I was 14. New Jersey just passed a law where you can get you're supposed to get your adoption records. All I got was the adoption, how it happened and all that. But as far as my original birth certificate, I get a piece of paper with just information on it. I can't get my original birth certificate because it's sealed. And even though I met my mother, my father, he passed away. I didn't get a chance to meet him. Met my siblings. My mother finally passed away. And so there's no, as far as my parents, they're not even around, but I still can't get my original birth certificate, which it hurts at times. I've got some land that's in another country that I can claim, but I can't do none of that because I don't have my original birth certificate. So hopefully the laws have changed. The resources that have helped me was Ancestry DNA was number one. I took all the ancestry tests that you could possibly take. That helped me. And then Facebook was a great source because someone actually found my biological mother. DNA detectives and search angels, they're a group that really helps people. They're very private about doing it. And yes, they're kind of like under the scope, but they help a lot of people. So basically, that's my story.
Okay, any questions for Kevin at all before we move forward? Okay. So I think before we go onto the information from the poll, I also would like to say the reason why we're here is one of the resources that I think would have helped me growing up if I would have known that. A lot of times I felt like I was the only person who was adopted, even though I know that's not true. But I definitely also didn't know that there might be vast amounts of Black people who were adopted. So this first question, most Black adoptees come from foster care. So it looks like most people said false. And the answer is false. So the thing is, Black children are overrepresented in the foster care system, but they're underrepresented in the overall children population. However, most Black adoptees come from private adoption. And even though that's not, because that's, Kevin, that's not your story either, right? You weren't private. Or were you? You muted. We can't hear you.
You told him I had a lawyer, but yeah, I believe it was private.
It was private.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So yeah, mine wasn't. It was through the state, and most adoptees that I know, actually, they were private. So okay, so most Black adoptees come from the hood. Most people said that this was false, and it is false. At the most basic level, assuming Black children come from the hood shows a bias that's based on a stereotype. However, we do want you to know that there are a lot of reasons that Black parents might relinquish their children, neglect being the first one, substance abuse, mental health issues, as in my story. Sometimes we conflate neglect with poverty, and that's not necessarily true. Also, kinship adoption that we mentioned earlier is common in Black families. And even though we're not here to talk about that, I do want to say that just anecdotally, I've noticed that folks who come from kinship adoption don't always understand that they too are adopted. So that's also kind of like a marginalized view of adoption. Black adoptees are also adopted from foster care, private domestic, and international. Kevin, you want to take this one?
Sure. Black children are twice as likely to be placed in foster care than white children.
And so only because I screenshot the answers, this one is about 50-50. So let's see.
It says true. 10% of children in the U.S. are placed in foster care before adulthood, compared to 5%. Black children are placed in foster care at a higher rate than white children who experience the same rate of maltreatment. So it's like 50-50. Could be a lot of factors in that. You know, yeah, mixed families and things of that sort. So.
Yeah, and I just want to also highlight that second bullet point because it kind of surprised me that Black children are placed in foster care at higher rates than white children who experience the same rates of maltreatment. So you can be being mistreated at the same rate, yet Black children go to foster care instead of staying with their families. And then there's more.
This is called an unwarranted racial disparity, UD. UD is the difference in placement rates among Black and white children who face equal likelihood of maltreatment if left alone at home. It's basically what Kathy was just describing. Most Black children are adopted by white parents.
And so this one was like 50-50 as well. So let's see what the answer is. Kevin, you want me to explain where you got it?
You can handle it.
Okay. All right, so the answer is maybe. And the answer is maybe because we really don't. So the first reason is because there aren't a lot of studies that are um, conducted with specifically Black adopted children. So a lot of times what will happen is we use the term people of color, we use the term BIPOC, and then that means it can be literally anybody who is not white, or who doesn't identify as white. So because we don't have the research to understand what happens here, you know, this is what we get. We get these skewed answers. So 73% of all adopted children of color are adopted into white families, but like, who are we talking about here? And then 40%, a significant portion of the approximately 40% of transracial adoptions in the US involve white parents adopting children of color. And again, who do we mean when we say children of color? A lot of times, you know, again, these numbers are skewed too, because a lot of times it's Asian children who are being adopted. Sometimes transnationally, you can be Black, but not necessarily Black domestic. So there's so many factors that we just haven't studied yet, but we should so that we know what's going on.
Black adoptees have a low graduation rate.
Okay, and this one is about half and half too, so let's see. Again, the answer is who really knows, because we're not really researching adopted people who are Black at rates that we are of other children. So it's conflicting. It depends on if the adoptee spent time in foster care, because that can increase low graduation rates. Are we talking about a transracial adoption? Because, like it or not, who adopts you matters. Not that Black people devalue education, because like I said, that's not my story, but there might be a lot of other factors that are due to race that cause you to have a better education. Did the adoptee attend private or public schools? Unfortunately, sometimes when we attend private schools, that is better, and then that can increase the graduation rate. Similarly, there are other factors to consider, such as systemic or institutionalized racism, because whether you are adopted or not, the graduation rates for Black people still lag behind their white counterparts, and others as well. Pre-adoption and adoption circumstances. So for example, and I'm not saying, I know that Kevin is very smart, but if you have someone like Kevin who,
Say so.
you know, I'm not, if you have somebody like Kevin who, you know, spent quite a bit of time in foster care and also was being mistreated at home due to colorism and due to a home bias, well, that can also affect your graduation rates. And also academic achievement requires support. So just because people adopt children, it doesn't mean that they're also giving them this academic support. So it's just too many factors that haven't been studied yet to really know. And that's, unfortunately, is the end of our presentation. But we wanted to end with some resources for Black adoptees. So perhaps you can just take a picture or screenshot this for your own self, or to pass this information on to others who you know are Black and adopted and need it. So Black Adoptees Meetup is specifically for adults 21 and older. And I only say that because there's a lot of drinking going on when we get together, and we want to make sure, you know, sending the babies over there. A new organization called Black African Diaspora Adoptee Network. The acronym is pronounced BADAN, and that is created by Nicole D. Shaw, who you might know as Coco or the Black Adoptee EA, and Sandy, I forgot her last name, and Coco's brother. Yes, we adopt by our very own Stacy Gatlin, who is here. which is specifically for Black adoptive parents, right? I don't want to misspeak. You're here, so you can correct. Okay. Identity, which is created by Isaac. I'm sorry, I don't know people's last names.
Isaac Eder.
Thank you, Isaac Eder, who is transracially adopted, and it's exactly what it sounds like. He helps transracial adoptees deal with identity issues and their parents. Black to the Beginning, who is created by Dr. Sam and Sandria Washington. One person is a professor, the other is a filmmaker, and they both have a podcast. BIPOC Adoptees, who is specifically for what it sounds like. And they're on the West Coast, and I think primarily have a large Asian population in the organization, but the B does stand for Black is what I like to remind people of. So you are welcome there. And PACT, Adult Adoptees and Former Foster Youth of Color, is there for a resource as well.
Captain, can I just add a couple more things on the previous slide
Yeah,
as well too? So
please.
just to, first of all, thank you for including Yes We Adopt. That was generous of you. I think just to add to for the listeners, I mean for the attendees as well too. First of all, great job to both of you. I think the one thing to keep in mind, as Catherine said, when you link about Black adoptees' voices and just giving them, not giving them a platform, but when you think of adoptee voices that are often heard in this adoption arena and adoption space, you don't often hear from Black adopted voices. These organizations that were created, in particular, Black Adoptees Meetup, but even identity for even for Isaac and Black's Beginning, even in the identity of an adopted person, there's additional, I guess, sub-identities, I guess you could say, because like you said, for Isaac was a transracial adopted person. Well, then Black to Beginning, Dr. Sam and Sandra are same race Black adoptees, but they're also both late discovery adoptees. Different layers, right? So different layers of each person's stories. BIPOC adopt, as you mentioned too, just having a broader, the BIPOC for folks, I think you said Black, Indigenous, persons of color, and even for PACT as well too, just understanding how there are different groups that are out there, I guess, from a support perspective. But I just want to add something I heard in a previous, in April Dinwiddie's keynote this morning, when someone mentioned sometimes being in adopted spaces, we just want to talk about the harm of being adopted. And sometimes it gets into race, it gets into other aspects of it. But able to remind that person, understood, totally understand how you may feel different about that one. But we try to find spaces that fit you. Every space is not a monolith. Every space isn't for everybody. It's just finding a space that you know you can speak about whatever the affinity of that topic of choice is. But even in an adopted person's space, there are so many layers and facets of what that looks like. So I think just that person, if they're on or not, but just finding that space that works best for you. If you do hear of stories and the topic does go into the discussion of race and identity, keep in mind that adoption is the first harm. I guess you could say that first affinity piece you have, but the layers that go on top of that, from a Black adopted person, transracial adopted person, all those things that go into it, even how you came to adoption, all those things, that understanding how everyone's story matters and everyone's story is different, and you're going to find your vibe and your tribe. Everything on this list is for everybody else here. Every Black person in here is either, but just be mindful of trying to find the space that you can get in and fit in, but more importantly, being heard, be respected for your story.
Yep, absolutely. And I just want to just piggyback on what you said. Thank you, Stacey, because it reminded me, like, Black Adoptees Meetup, unlike other organizations, we're not trying to like teach you anything. You don't come there to learn explicitly about anything. It's not a conference. It's not for that. It is literally just to create and to have joy in a space with one another, which is something that is really important in all communities, but especially for Black people who historically have literally sometimes been killed because they were happy, or because they were having fun, or because they were doing something they weren't supposed to. So
Or because they're
Yes,
just black?
yeah, just because they're black. Unfortunately, yeah. And so we like to honor this for that reason. Yvonne looks like she has a question.
Hi, y'all. My heart is so full. And I struggle because I feel a little awkward and embarrassed. I was adopted in the 60s, closed adoption and I'm clarifying this for a reason, first generation Caribbean American parents. And I was adopted, when I was 3 months old. My birth mother was from Cambodia and my birth father was from Africa, but I don't know anything else about him. From DNA, I've gotten mixed results because, of the population sways from Nigeria to Cameroon to Congo, back to Nigeria. It's like I just put it down. I'm like, I was blessed. I had a decent father, wonderful father, and my adoptive parents have since passed on. I bring up the point that I feel embarrassed because I just recently found this space. I used to be, I'm a former therapist, educator, et cetera. And then I decided was kept being pulled into the mental health space, but didn't want to go back to being a counselor. So I've become a certified coach. And then I found out they had an adoption certification program a year afterwards. And so now I'm a certified adoption coach, and I've learned so much that has helped me heal. But I had no idea about Black spaces for adoptees, and I could just cry. And I say that because um, I didn't even know about adoption support groups until I was taking my coaching class. And I just happened to be like put in an activity where I was talking about it and someone mentioned CASE. And CASE really, they helped to save me, that support group, because it normalized. You talk about finding your tribe, right? And um, even though I was adopted by a Black family, I look nothing like them. And I remember taking a family picture surrounded, all the grandkids surrounded by my grandmother and my my aunt, my godmother, my favorite aunt said, "Can you smile and keep your eyes open at the same time?" And my nickname would be, something that is not appropriate that you would call Chinese people, but that was a term of endearment at my first job out of school. And I didn't know any better. I've always been so lost trying to, you know, figure out which world I was in and not really being a part of any, to the point where I got very into DEI. I was a major, I left therapy or left counseling to become a consultant in that space because I'm so used to being on the outside looking in. And to see your beautiful faces and to see this list, um, like I said, I don't want to be redundant, but my heart is so full. And I feel really, like I said, embarrassed, but grateful that I'm here and I found it. So thank you all for sharing your stories, um, normalizing our crazy lives, existences, and being authentic. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Yvonne. I want to just respond to that. I don't think that I understand the feeling of being embarrassed, but I really don't think you have to be embarrassed, especially because those of us that were born in like the 60s, 70s, and 80s, nobody was talking about adoption and to this level, and much less like not in the family, much less like with strangers, right? So I don't think there's anything to be embarrassed about. I also want to affirm that that part about not looking like someone, because I think people think because you're Black and you're the same race that we all just Black, right? We all just look alike. And that is absolutely not true. So I have similar stories about comments about my eyes, my booty, my like anything that didn't look like everybody else. I remember, I'm just gonna tell y'all this because we have time. I told you I went to special schools, and so we would go around like doing sign language, singing sign language for whatever, City Hall. And one time we were in the paper, and I remember my great aunt was like, "Oh, I knew that was you because I saw your booty." Right. And I'm like, I don't know what to say to that, but it was always highlighted. Um, the parts of me that didn't look like everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I totally
I remember
understand
my
that.
mom, who was considered a dark-skinned woman, she, she's pushed me in the big buggy, and showing people me as a baby. And then she would tell me this as I was older, that people would go, "Oh, is that the best you could do?" Because I was bald and I was high yellow and no chin. My daddy always told me I was beautiful. But
Yeah.
I look back and I'm like, what was the intention behind telling me that story?
Yeah.
And I also know she came in with her own baggage, like so many parents do, whether you are adopted or not.
Yeah.
And I have finally gotten to a place, and this is all so recent for me, like within the past couple of months, where I no longer um, harbor harsh feelings towards her, where I have forgiven her because I know she loved me the best way she knew how, and they
Yeah.
both did the best that they could. And that has just empowered me, giving me my power back. Because every time I feel like you're angry or rageful about somebody, you're giving away your power. Why would I want to do that? I need all the power I can get, right? And so it's I have this space now, that this lightness, where I'm excited to help others. Not really sure the best way to do that. I don't like just wasting time and seeing what sticks. But it's a
Yeah.
process, and I'll be 62 in a couple of weeks. And so I'm just grateful I still remember who I am, and I can
Mm.
operate a laptop. And so I'm here. you know?
Can
Thank
I
you.
just
Thank
add?
you.
Yeah, I just want to add, Yvonne, how are you?
Oh, thanks. Hi.
Stacy.
Hi, Steve.
First and foremost, when I hear these stories of folks like didn't recognize community exist in when I created Yes We Adopt. So I'm a board member for AK, a proud board member AK, and also the founder of Yes We Adopt, because I realized in the Black community, our voices weren't really being heard, or our voices are muted. And there's two different things, right? People are speaking and their voice isn't loud enough, or equally, a voice can just be totally muted, as we talked about. When I think oftentimes about how do we eliminate secrecy, stigma, and shame, we have to have the conversation as we're having today. And I thank Katherin and Kevin again for putting this together. But we often think about how our voices aren't heard, and is that the right space to even have this conversation? It's always the right space, it's always the right time, because if you catch one more person to recognize they're not alone in this journey. And then on our side, it's about how do we educate, for me in particular, as an adopted parent, how do we educate adopted parents to have the discussion early and often with their child, so there's no secrecy, and there's no like, oh, you found out from that drunk uncle at the barbecue. Nope.
Mhm.
If you talk about it early and often, we don't have to worry about that, oh, surprise. And then once you do find out, giving you the space, brave space, safe space, however you want to determine your space, the space to be able to have the conversation, to ask questions as a child who's 2 years old, 20 years old, or about to be 62, and man, you look fabulous, right? So those things are so important about why we do what we do from an AK perspective, yes, without perspective, whomever, and Katherin, excuse me, get their books. Their books, I read Kevin's book and it was very, 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 very hard to read. But I met him in his current state, not his future former state, but to look about how people can come through their journey hard, as Catherine and I talked about, it's not rainbows and unicorn. There's also not thunderstorms and donkeys. You can really have both perspectives and a range of perspectives about adoption for whoever you are. So thank you, Yvonne, for your input. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
that.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Anybody else? I'm gonna spotlight. Anybody else want to chime in or thoughts or comments? And again, you do not have to have black to be black to have comments. I think just some of the consistencies in terms of stories can still matter, right? Raise your hand. We'll
I just want to thank you guys for all of your stories and for explaining your resources and everything. I started a local peer support group for all members in the constellation 22 years ago. And so I'm always looking at resources that I can share when they're appropriate. And so thanks so much for this. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Shannon.
I just wanted to thank Dr. Katherin for pointing out that we need support after adoption too. That's the field I'm in. Is post-adoption, and Massachusetts, I think, is the only state that has a state-run program for post-adoption services. And that's I work and head a small nonprofit for like therapeutic services, but there just isn't enough of that. So I just love that you put that in there, and I hope someday that can be a part of it, because it's not the end, it's the beginning, and a lot. And sometimes, it's not always the best fit, and that their need for children out there, there really needs to be some more checkpoints.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Kristen.
Yeah, thank you both for sharing your stories.
I wanted to, even in the chat, there's a couple comments from Dr. Adam Anthony. Thank you both for highlighting some of our experiences as Black adoptees. Kudos to you both. I think Louise talked about, thank you for sharing the resources. I have a few friends I'm going to share this with. When we say sharing is caring, it is so true, right? It is so crucial to understand what that looks like.
Yeah, and thank you, Dr. Adam, for saying that. I would also encourage people to check out if you're on social media, sometimes it can be comforting to follow some of these accounts, and you'll know like which one is appropriate for you. Some accounts are a little too angry for me and triggering. Others can be like super therapeutic. So that can also give you an idea before you maybe join the organization, just to see maybe, like what they're about and what their core values are too. Yeah.
If there are no other questions, anything else you want to add? Can I call some folks and just say, what do you think? So I'm going to call on my fellow board member, Taya. If you don't, yes, I'm going to call on you, dear. And Cap, let me know if you want to stop the recording. Do you want to stop the recording?
No, we're good, I think.
Okay. If any folks feel uncomfortable, you can also stop the recording as well too and pause it as well too. I'm just calling on Taya just because as another AKA board member, and also who has a podcast about her journey as a Black adoptee and being in reunion.
I feel okay. You guys hear me? Okay, it was some sound that came through my ear and I thought something happened. I was very much drawn to the topic because what I'm learning as I engage in this adoption space is the complexities of the Black adoptee experience separate from other races. And there's just a lot of different nuances that you presented. And one of the things that kind of, I think, stood out for me is I think you were emphasizing the lack of research and potentially maybe helping us to see if there's ways that we can advocate actually to put ourselves in spaces to do the research. Because when you start really teasing things out, it's like, oh my gosh, there's still so much that's not known. And so if we can, in these different spaces, even collaborate around research, figuring out what that involves, I think it would just bring such a wealth of insight and information to our community. So thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Taya. And I say yes because I think, like with many things, no one's going to do it for us. So we have to, whoever can do that, and I'll just put myself out there. I am a scholar, so I can do that, and entering independent scholarhood literally as we speak. So if anybody wants to do that with me, that would be wonderful. I'm really accessible. I'm trying to like, I cuss a lot. Kevin knows this. And so I'm trying to like tailor my, that's why I'm speaking slowly because I'm doing good, right, Kevin? So I was just, I was gonna say I'm hella accessible because I am. So you can like reach out to me if you have any projects that are like that, because I would be interested in that, because we have to, no one is going to do it for us. They're just not. And I hate to say it, as I think it's because they do not care. So if we care, we have to be the ones who do it. So yes, Taya, that's what I was thinking.
Thank you, Taya. There is a question in the chat. Do you know of any support groups for teens in Chicago? I don't know any support groups for teens in Chicago as of yet, but I will definitely follow up with you and find out. But go ahead, Kath.
There is one. If we stay on here long enough, because somebody sent me one. The Adoptee Healing Collective sent me, but I think it was mostly Asian. It was specifically for Asian teenagers.
This is
But
a
I
black
can,
boy. Yeah. Well, like I think he's 13 now. So.
yeah.
Mhm.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Who,
I'm
me?
also going to check with PAC as well too, just because PAC has some
They
teen
might.
support groups. But I don't know. A lot of folks, it depends on the age and is it in person versus virtual. So I will follow up. Yvonne, if you want to send me a
Yeah,
DM with your email, that'd be
I
great.
will. Thank you so much.
Please. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
If anybody else knows any other support groups, doesn't have to be um, race specific, but just teens in general. They need to be heard and seen. And the only thing I would think about too, it's not a group per se, but I know what Angela Tucker has Adoptee Mentoring Society. Again, I don't know what her age range is for her. I should put that on as well too. Adoptee Mentoring Society. It's not a support. I don't know if it's a support group, just one-on-one. I'm not exactly sure, but we can check with Angie, and she may have an idea as well too, with support groups as well too. So
Thank you so much.
you're welcome. We have a little bit of time left. So with more than a little bit of time left, but any more questions or comments or thoughts that anybody wants to share? Thank you, Yvonne. I received it.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm not going to hold you to hold you. Any final remarks, Katherin? And before I go that way, I want to also remind people that AK does have support groups. Uh, Adoption Network Cleveland. Thank you, Susan. Appreciate that. Appreciate that they have Adoption Network Cleveland has support groups for teens.
Okay.
Which is awesome. Thank you, Rebecca. I would just also remind people that AK does have support groups. AK has been around for 30 years. I'm still amazed at how long we've been around. However, I also say too that time has changed, right? So the support, awesome. Thank you, Kristen. I appreciate that one. That she said that Angela Tucker's resources are definitely for 13-year-olds, absolutely. And then Adoptees Connect Chicago. Thank you. But I would also remember we do have support groups with AK as well too. Again, come. They're free. They're once a month. We don't have it for teens right now, but we have it for birth parent. We have, excuse me, adoptive parent. We have for adopted persons, and also have an estrangement group as well too. We've recognized, as you mentioned, they're estranged within families. So come join. Again, if it doesn't vibe for you, it's okay. At least you got a chance to see what we have to offer. And we can always, again, the biggest thing for me for AK I learned is that it's the networking of resources. People have resources all day. I don't know. Let me ask Taya. Let me ask Katherin. Let me ask Kevin. Thank you, Marcy, putting the support group information in the chat. Susan also said fireside adoptees meet on Thursdays and Saturdays. So again, just the asking, look how much resources you're getting out in return. This is awesome. Any final thoughts from Kevin and from Katherin?
Hey, I appreciate y'all having me. I appreciate Kathy for inviting me to share my story, and I'm just happy to be here and happy that we were able to share our stories and the resources, and tell everybody to hang in there best that they can.
Yep, and I'm just gonna say thanks for coming, but also just realize that this is just the surface. We like anything with any group of people, we are not a monolith. So there are so many sub types of Black adoptees that Kevin and I just represent the same race, domestic adoptees. I could name 5 other types, or like even Yvonne just named one, right? So just keep that in mind. We're just representing like one very small part of a smaller part. Yeah.
It just feels so good to see y'all. I just, you know, thank y'all. Thank you so much.
I'm putting your books in the chat. Kevin, if you have your link, quick access to your link, put your books in the chat as well too. We should do that in advance. And thank you, Andrea, for opportunity to listen and adoption experience. And I think Marcy put also the link in there for CEUs for those that need it. And what we'll do also is create the resources, take the resources that you guys mentioned before we get out of this breakout room. We'll capture the resources and put them in some kind of document. We'll get back out to folks as well too. But thank you all for your time today. The next session begins in 45 minutes. Appreciate that. Kevin's book was 2, Living in Our Shadows. Definitely a very, very, very hard read, but it's powerful to see Kevin's story and his journey and the raw vulnerability of his story. And Catherine's book is on my list of books to read next. So the Facebook group as well too. The Black Adoptee Support Group Facebook group too. So thank you all for everything. I hope you're enjoying the AK conference. Please dial back in at excuse me. The next one's at 5 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock Central time. So you have about 40 something minutes or so to go. And we thank you all for